Hello YouTubers and movie fans, and welcome to my review of an incredible movie. It's The Incredibles. Now this is of course one of the Pixar animated films, and the Pixar films, they get you right in the feels, you know? They really do. They've made some of the best films ever, haven't they? Like Toy Story. And this one is one of the most beloved ones out there. But what do I think of it? Well, our film starts off with a little bit of a flashback. It introduces us to the two main characters. You've got Bob Parr and you've got Helen Parr. And these have superpowers. Bob Parr, also known as Mr. Incredible, has basically super strength, so he can lift cars up and throw them and things like that. So it's quite a strong guy. And we have Helen Parr, also known as Elastigirl, and she's basically a little bit like Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. Probably better in terms of film appearances, because so far that character in films, Mr. Fantastic, hasn't been really good in the 3 films it has appeared in so far. So Elastigirl is really cool because she stretches her arms out and everything. She's stretchy. That is basically what her superpower is, and it's really cool. I think that it's a really cool idea that they've done this. So they've kind of copied a few other superheroes, but they've given them their own twists. The Incredibles is a family story, and you get that throughout this film. It's all about family, hence why it's called The Incredibles. So as I said, it starts off with a flashback. It introduces us to these characters, the fighting, crime and everything. Then they get married. Superheroes are becoming less and less popular though. And as a result, Bob Parr gets sued because he actually does save someone, but they're complaining because they broke his neck. Basically, this someone was trying to commit suicide. Yeah, this is in a Pixar animated film, and we are only in the first 10 to 15 minutes of this film. Is that a good sign? Well, he gets sued. They become more and more less popular, let's say. To see what I did there, I said more and more less popular. That doesn't really make any sense, but they kind of go into hiding. They have a family life. He and Helen get married, so they are now husband and wife, so you could say that she has become Mrs. Incredible. We flash forwards to 15 years later. Bob Parr is working in his office job, which he doesn't really enjoy from what you can see. You've got a boss that he has, who's voiced by Wallace Shawn, who also voices Rex in the Toy Story films. It's a nice little cameo he has there. It's a really funny scene, and it turns out that Bob loses his job because he loses his shit with this guy, his boss. So it's from then we get introduced to the rest of the family, because in these 15 years the family, Mr. and Mrs. Incredible, have got busy. And that's not my quote, by the way. That is actually a quote that comes from Syndrome later in the film. I'll talk a bit about Syndrome in a second, but before that, they've had kids, and these kids also have superpowers. We have Dash, who basically, by his name, you can guess his main power is running really fast. He's really fast, so he's basically like the Flash from the DC universe.
Coincidence? I think not!
We have Violet Parr, who kind of has similar powers to Scarlet Witch from Marvel, and probably some other characters from comic books that I can't really think of off the top of my head right now. I suppose you could say the Invisible Woman from Fantastic Four. She has powers similar to that as well, seeing as she does turn invisible as well. So yeah, that's Violet. And we have Jack Jack, who doesn't have powers, at least we think he doesn't have powers until the climax of the film. And yeah, Bob is really, really bored with this normal life that he's having, and it's always great, like when he teams up with his best buddy, Frozone, to fight crime, and he does this basically behind his family's back. They just say they're going bowling, and in actual fact they're trying to rescue people from a burning building. So it shows how it can be when someone retires as a superhero, essentially. And Frozone, his main power is basically throwing projectiles of ice and freezing things. And he's really cool. Yeah, I just did that. I am so sorry. Unbeknown to Mr. Incredible and Frozone, though, they are being watched as they go out and do their business, go out on their bowling trip. And it's later when Bob receives a phone call and he gets recruited on a new mission, which requires him to go out to this new island. So he goes to this new island. He's a bit out of shape though, because it has been 15 years since he's properly done this sort of thing. So, you know, he's put on a bit of weight, family life, all of that. It's there when he fights this robot, which is a really, really cool sequence. And he succeeds in fighting the robot. He's got the job done, but his costume has got a little bit of damage. So that is when we're introduced to one of the best characters in this film, Edna Mode, who is actually voiced by the director of this film, Brad Bird. And you've got some of the most famous quotes from this character. Nearly every line what Edna Mode says in this is so quotable. Most famous of them, of course, being
No kicks!
She designs a new suit for Bob, and then that's when you have the more familiar red and black suit, which basically provides a logo for this film. Because before that, he had the old blue and black, which from what he wore years and years before the main action of this film takes place. So he goes back to the island and he fights an even bigger robot, which is more powerful, and this actually overpowers Bob. And that is when we are introduced to the main villain, or should I say reintroduced to the main villain of the film, who is Syndrome, also known as Buddy. Now, Buddy actually appears near the beginning of this film because he is a big fan of Mr. Incredible, and he wants to be Mr. Incredible's sidekick, but Mr. Incredible says no, I only work alone. So he doesn't really take to that very well, and since then he wants to become a superhero, so he kind of gets vengeance on all of these other superheroes. He's actually killed all of these other superheroes, so it's quite dark really for a kids film that all these superheroes have died. But there it is. Bob Parr is his next target. He tries to kill him. He thinks he has killed him, but of course he's not, because he's the main character of this film. You know, kind of stupid killing the main character of the film, although it has happened before. Eventually though, he gets captured, Mr. Incredible, and then that's that. Meanwhile, back at home, Mrs. Incredible is not really happy because she thinks that something's going on. From what I get, she seems to think maybe that he's cheating on her, because he hears her talking to this woman on the phone who actually is Mirage. So she goes to Edna when she finds that his old suit has been stitched up. So she realises, he's been up to his old tricks again. He's been going out doing some superhero work behind my back. So she goes to Edna, and then she provides her with all of these other suits for the rest of the family, which is again a really, really cool scene. Then she goes in pursuit of Bob, but unbeknown to her, the kids come along with her, Dash and Violet. Meanwhile, back at home, Jack is being babysitted by some weird teen, and he causes quite a bit of trouble for her, as we find out at the end of the film. So they go down to the island to rescue Mr. Incredible, but as a result the plane gets shot down because Syndrome realises that the plane is coming for them, and he realises that it is his family, so he thinks that he has contacted the family, when in actual fact it was his homing device from his suit, which was activated by Edna. So the plane gets blown up, but they parachute down using the superpowers of Elastigirl, using the new suit that has been provided by Edna. And then we get that really cool scene. Basically, the mum is a boat and Dash is like the engine of the boat. He's using his speed as like an engine, and they go down the ocean and they continue going to the islands, and they go to rescue Mr. Incredible. And I think this is when all the best bits of the film come to play, where basically you see all of these superpowers come into play. You see all of these superpowers in the motion, and I think it's really cool how all these family members have all got these different powers. Eventually, of course, the family is reunited with Bob. They rescue Bob. Syndrome goes on with his plan to go back to the hometown or the home city, and he wants to prove that he's this superhero by stopping all of these machines, when in actual fact he's just controlling the machines by remote control. The Incredibles follow them, they go in pursuit. Eventually they do stop Syndrome in his plans. Eventually all the Incredibles, they're all hailed as all these superheroes. Yes, the superheroes have come back. It's quite ironic really, because the superhero genre around this time was kind of a little bit like that, but of course since then the superhero genre has become like a really popular thing in popular culture today as we know it. Syndrome though finds out where the Incredibles live, and he kidnaps Jack. The babysitter has left Jack with this stranger. What a irresponsible babysitter she is. Who does she think she is? It's here when we get to see Jack's powers, and to be honest, I don't really know what the hell his powers are. He sets himself on fire, he becomes like this devil thing, he becomes made of iron, so Syndrome drops down like a few feet in the air when they're flying. It's all really crazy, to be honest. So, yeah, Jack, his superpowers are strange, but that's a really cool scene again. Jack gets dropped, but gets saved, of course, because you wouldn't have a baby die in a Pixar film now, would you? And Syndrome is there, he's on a plane, and Bob throws a car at the plane to kill Syndrome, and Syndrome does get killed. Syndrome does have a cape as well, and if you remember what Edna Mode says,
No capes.
no capes, because ultimately it is his cape that gets him killed, because he gets caught in the propeller of the plane. But the plane explodes, so does that mean that Bob actually killed a few innocent civilians as well? maybe I'm just reading a bit too much into this, because at the end of the day, it's a kid's movie. So this day is saved, everyone's alright, and then we get the Underminer, and I'm like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? And then the film ends. So they leave it on a nice cliffhanger, and I'm like, sat there in the theatre, back when I'm 9 years old, I think, oh, I can't wait until The Incredibles 2. Well, guess what? It has taken Disney nearly 15 years to make a sequel to this film. The Incredibles 2 better had be a good film. Overall, of course, I really love this film. This is a classic, I believe. This is definitely one of the greatest Disney Pixar films to ever come out. You can't really go wrong with Disney Pixar. They are probably the best animation studio, in my honest opinion. I mean, you've got DreamWorks as well, but the difference between DreamWorks and Pixar is Pixar make really good quality films, whereas I feel like DreamWorks, they've made loads of films, so it's more of a quantity rather than quality. Although a few of their films are really good as well. I'm not dissing DreamWorks by any means. I think that they do some really good animated films. I mean, I think the kids these days are really lucky, because all I had in terms of 3D animated films back in the day were Toy Story, Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, this film, the first 2 Shrek films. That was about it, really. There's all sorts of great things about this film. It's going to come as no surprise to you that I'm easily going to give this a 10 out of 10. It is a film that I highly recommend to the family, and I think that adults will really enjoy this as well, because they have quite a few good references to the superhero genre in general, and at the same time it's got a few good nods to family life, because as I said earlier in this review, that is essentially what this film is all about. It's all about family, it's all about sticking together, and sometimes getting together to fight for the greater good. So yeah, 10 out of 10 review from me. It is an incredible film. No pun intended, although it is. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my review of this film. If you have any more suggestions for what you would like me to review in the future, then please feel free to make a comment down below, and I can see what I can do for you. And until next time, have a nice day, and bye for now.